versus Kleerkast. Hard to predict the outcome, but burpcow lost badly earlier today versus Blitzbullet. He lost 8-2, actually losing the 8 first games and winning the last 2. So let's see how that, if that will have an impact on his confidence going into this match. If we look at the overall standings, we see that neither player has anything to do with the first place. The first place that earns the right to challenge the world champion Yasugi 99. Both players rated above 2,500, and I predict a very tense and exciting match. Let's see if the players are ready to go. Yeah, and we're already off. We will be watching from burpcow's view, and Kleerkast likes to play the d4 kingside fianchetto. And this is something that burpcow had to deal with earlier today also, when he was playing a Blitzbullet. And he chose this very setup then also, although Blitzbullet didn't play knight h4. I'm not sure what this accomplishes because for black, because h3 is usually a useful move for white. Although the knight on h4, maybe it's not doing so much there. So if black takes here, you will take on h5. So white is probably hoping to trade, after bishop g6, trade this knight for the bishop. This knight on f4 has some interesting possibilities. Yeah, white might trade a piece for 2 pawns here on d5. Sometimes maybe you can march the pawn to e6 and take g6 instead. Hi there, viewers. Good to see you. So the knight on d5 is really annoying for black. White is threatening to put a pawn maybe on e7. So maybe, oh, well, this pins the g pawn, so black is actually threatening to take on g3. So this is a nifty move, attacking c5, protecting g3. And once you get rid of the bishop on c5, white is ready to fork on e7. This is looking promising for white. Thank you so much. burpcow thinking a lot here. Maybe the best is simply to retreat somewhere to d6 or e7. So b7 is hanging. White could pick it up with the tempo on the queen. And now d5 is hanging also. But maybe white will spend a tempo placing a pawn on d4. Oh, this is even better, attacking the queen, protecting b2. Because white would rather put the pawn maybe on f4, so you avoid any bishop takes g3 followed by knight e3 tricks. So probably black will go for bishop takes g3 here. It's the only sensible move, yeah. And now actually black has some chances. He prefers to take the defender, the bishop, on g2. And if the king takes, another knight will land on e3, so white had better find something else than taking on g2. Yeah, just watch me commentating and you will be a genius in no time. This is a strong attacking move. Attacking the queen, attacking the pawn on h3. White decides to simply give up the queen. And the only thing that is speaking in favor of white just now is the fact that black is low on time. But look at these white pieces, they are not participating at all. So basically black has a queen and a bishop attacking a lone king and rook with some pawns around it. So threatening, for instance, knight h4 or knight f4 or even queen takes g3 now. Maybe evacuating e3 is a good move. I would probably have gone to f4 so you can take g3 here. Yeah, actually the motorhead ram is my great secret. White is on the ropes here. Maybe just go back and take f4 with the queen, opening h4 for a knight check. Well, black needs to be quicker. So what do you get in Australia? Do you have AC/DC RAM maybe? Not sure why black decided to give up his queen there. Just felt a bit unnecessary. Didn't create any extra weaknesses. Black lost his thread a little bit here, but he's up so much material wise. Black is throwing his extra material at white. Just trying to stay safe. And indeed black is safe. No, I'm not working with chess. I'm a lousy chess player. No one would hire me. So burpcow takes the lead. As you can see, Kleerkast has a huge lifetime score against burpcow. And I would say that Kleerkast is maybe a slight favorite. Which also the Crazy House Elo is indicating. So black is sort of sacrificing a piece for 2 pawns. He got 2 pawns for the piece. Hard to estimate this position. This queen might end up getting trapped. Almost trapped. I wonder if it's my students who are flattering me. And to my students, no, it's just Coke. Coca-Cola, I should say. And to the rest of you, yes, it's Motorhead rum and Coke. Actually, I don't know anything about this. Looks like black could place a pawn here on e4. And just go for the attack. So maybe queen h6. Even though white would probably take on d5 then. Yes, I am a teacher. Or I pretend to be anyway. And I think taking on f3, taking on g2 is simply not enough. But this is absolutely an option. If white takes, the rook on h1 is hanging. I have super nice students. And if the students aren't nice, I make them nice. Because I'm a super teacher. So lots of options here for black. He could move the king. And now there are threats of pawn f2 and heavy somewhere on g1 or e1. Some interesting attacking options here for black. White protecting f2 and also having some ideas of maybe knight f6 at some point, although this bishop is covering e8, so there is no mate. And what do you do now? Oh, he took there. I was thinking maybe queen takes f3. Just plain Coca-Cola. So when the king reaches the third rank, it's not a good sign, and this just picks up a piece for free, and now black is clearly better. And not only a piece, he picks up a pawn as well, and when you take here, e3 is free for a knight. And maybe pawn g2, simply queening, looking horrible. So knight at g4 is an option here. And once again the king comes to the third rank and white loses the queen. Tjena, tjena. And Kleerkast equalizes. And clearly this is something that Kleerkast has prepared, the knight h4 maneuver. It brought him a good game. In the previous white game, although he lost some control afterwards. So the idea is to capture g6 and then take here some point and play e5, and black took here. Oh, and this is the same line as the game before. So black played bishop c5, white played knight e4. And this is exactly the same moves as before. And then white allowed capturing g3. Yeah, this makes more sense. Shielding the pawn on g3. That's what I suggested in the first game. Well, moving your king pawn forward to e4 is a good move. It opens up for your queen and your bishop. And as Bobby Fischer would say, best by test. It's probably the best crazy house and bug house move. And moving the queen to h5 is probably not a good idea. It's premature. And black is going for the same idea here, but this costs a lot more than it did the last time. And probably white will pick it up, allow knight e3, and then maybe just give up the queen. Call out checkmate. You certainly have some interesting questions. Snouch. Well, call out checkmate is just silly, if you ask me. So white looking a bit naked here, probably bishop here, covering g3 and protecting the rook. Although maybe white can allow the bishop taking on f2. So this is another way of defending. And now black has to look out for queen takes g7. Black is setting up a knight g3 check. White hoping to get out of the check, out of the threat with a check on h4. So instead of taking, black moves into the corner, and at the moment black doesn't have any diags, so the knight check here isn't so dangerous. And white seizes the opportunity to attack the black king. White is really close to mating. He can't even take on h6 because of bishop check here. Or can he maybe? And then pawn on g7, bishop takes, king takes h7. I was looking. But this seems worse. So now he has a pawn. Is knight f1 a threat, maybe? And the bishop is mate on f6, and Kleerkast takes the lead. Genius drag. You mean genius move? So Kleerkast giving a piece for a pawn here in the opening. And some interesting compensation. Although the rook in the corner is protected, so white can take on g3. Now g2 is threatened. Maybe something like taking here, queen takes, and queen f3. Looks like white has enough cover for the squares around the second rank to prevent any pawns from queening. Although at the moment black isn't threatening anything. The rook is protected, the knight on e4 is protected, so maybe it's time to do something more active. So maybe pawn h6. Although pawn g3 is probably a threat. That is sort of why I wanted to play queen f3, yeah. He goes for the queen f3 line. And now the bishop on b5 is hanging. So maybe it was a mistake, although the knight can protect the bishop. Maybe a6 just to get rid of the pin here. I'm thinking a6, bishop takes, pawn takes. Or do you go for pawn g3 maybe? Looks like white has everything under control here. But what was the purpose of a6? If you just take... Oh, you play queen b7 then. So take queen b7, rook b8, and you probably take with the queen on c6. Black only has 2 pawns in hand. That's not much. Black tries to loosen up the white defense. Queen is pinning the a pawn, and if this knight goes, the bishop is hanging. And black would just love if white took here, but he's not doing that. So, anything wrong with taking the free bishop? I don't think so. Although f6 is really weak here, so this is critical. Yeah, maybe black is simply too slow here. Maybe. Now black can take on f3, creating a mating threat. Probably just taking e4 here. And then knight at f3. I'm sure bishop taking e4 was really good. But maybe this is good as well. This is one of those almost mate. And white is soon running out of checks. And probably something here on g1, just picking up the rook, or just delivering mate. Yeah. Kleerkast is really good at finding those mating patterns. 3-1 Kleerkast. So this is burpcow's idea. He wants to trade this on f3. And this time Kleerkast invites it. What I think of ace of spades. Let me show you what I think of ace of spades. This is what I think of ace of spades. So now the knight on e5 is strong, hitting both f7 and c6, and probably black has to protect c6 and then he just give the piece for a pawn and a long-lasting attack. Looks like this is something Kleerkast has played before, or prepared. He hasn't spent many seconds here in the opening. So giving up the pawn on c6. White will take it and probably, well, what do you do? Maybe just return here or place another knight on e5. Yeah, this looks good. Everything har det bra. Ses vi imorgon kanske. And this is just costing too much for black. Maybe pawn here. Bishop takes, take the rook, and rook on b8. Looks pretty hopeless for black. Ja, det är bra. Okay. I won't forget that. Thank you so much. So if black takes here on d5, white simply takes back, forking the rook and the bishop on c5. The king side looks secure enough. And black doesn't have much of a choice, does he? Because the knight is threatening c7. And now it's mate in 2 here, or even 1. Okay. Yeah, bad game for burpcow there. 4-1 Kleerkast when we're halfway through. And Kleerkast still blitzing out those opening moves. So maybe running the h-pawn up the board is an idea for black. Black's position is a bit cramped here. And there's no tactical trick here of taking e5 because the bishop is protected, so white can simply take on e5. So indeed he pushes the h-pawn. And now the plan is simple enough. Just run the h-pawn up the board. Okay, so the knight is protecting h3, and also there is sacrifice idea here on d5. Maybe it's too much. Is this knight going this way or this way? Because if you take on d5, h3 might come. So this was the plan. If black takes, maybe e6. I'm thinking maybe queen e7, just to create a way out for the king. Queen e7, take with the queen. Well, this doesn't look as safe as queen e7 option. Yeah, what about pawn g6 here? I sense that black has some problems here. White really wants a pawn for f7. And if black takes on c4, maybe d5 will come. This is looking really bad for black. And black's attack is far away. Wow, quite an audience. And as long as you just leave the pawn on g3, everything is fine for white here, I think. So pawn here, just dance away. This should be fine for white. Although now there is a threat. Knight here, take here, and pawn here, and rook on h2. But white needs to survive this first. I mean, black needs to survive this. Maybe I underestimated the black attack here. So maybe you just take on h4 at some point. Oh, he just keeps going forward. Look at those pawns. So is there a forced mate here? We will see very soon. Do you take on c6? Because when you take on c6, king takes. This looks like a strong check, but the knight is hanging, and I'm not sure about this, because it's as soon as the white checks run out, there's stuff like knight at g3, so white protects g3. And now black looks safe. Black has a ton of material here. And the king does look safe. Probably just rook h8. And there's nothing for white here. He just doesn't have enough material. And Kleerkast will not miss the opportunity to checkmate here. Yes, he finds the checkmate. Poor burpcow. He must have had a mate there. Let's check. Where did he misplay this? Huge white advantage here. Mate in 13. Mate in 11. So knight c5 check was a bit better. Still nothing wrong. Taking c6 was fine, but the queen f3 was not the best move. Queen a4 followed by rook to c1. Yeah, that would have wrapped it up. It's still really good for white. It's actually mate in 7. Oh, how did he survive this? So apparently bishop d5 was the bad move, but still here, just taking on g8, and now there's nothing. Okay, so let's follow burpcow again. And when we enter the action, we are in d4, d5, white king side fianchetto opening. Positional struggle ahead here. So white looking to capture h6 maybe. Rip that king side open. Yeah, let's go for it. Bishop takes h6. Not quite yet. Yeah, but burpcow must be really sad. He missed the mate there. Was a nice attacking game from him. So white calmly protected the g4 pawn, and I foresee a bishop taking the pawn on h6 anytime soon now. So maybe black is hoping to push the e pawn and put pressure on g4. Yep, white is taking h6. It would be nice to take f8 as well, because then diag and the rook in the corner is mate. Or just pawn g7 and go hunting for a rook. So a slightly odd placement of the knights here. White has to be careful so he doesn't lose a piece here. Maybe pawn f4. Yeah. The knight on f6 is in trouble here. Yes, I do remember Chase. Chase Senior and Chase Junior. Did you play on fix, Spinal Tap? Yeah, he did disappear one day. I'm not sure. I think maybe he wasn't feeling too well. Oh, Mr. Cool. Nice to see you. I only heard rumors about Chase. Maybe he was a bit older, like me, in his 50s. And not sure if it was a Vietnam veteran or whatever, and maybe the Bughouse was just consuming him. And speaking of consuming, burpcow lost on time here. He consumed all his time. burpcow switching to d4. Yeah, actually everybody disappeared from fix. And I'm not surprised really. That's one of the reasons why I left 21 years ago